Sarah Winters, a seasoned Texas Department of Public Safety officer, had seen her fair share of unusual incidents, but nothing quite like this. The heat of the Texas sun shimmered off the asphalt as she pulled up behind a line of stopped cars, their drivers standing outside, pointing toward the median. Something was causing commotion. A small bobcat kitten darting in and out of the roadway, seemingly desperate yet hesitant. Sarah approached the scene with a practiced calm, speaking with a concerned bystander. "Ma'am, there's a baby bobcat out there," the man in the faded Dallas Cowboys t-shirt explained. "It keeps trying to cross, then runs back, almost caused a pile-up when a semi braked hard to avoid it." Sarah scanned the area, noting the kitten's frantic behavior. Most wild animals instinctively avoided busy highways, yet this one seemed to be seeking attention. Something wasn't right. Lifting her binoculars, she observed an odd device strapped to the bobcat's hind leg, a blue marker of some sort. This wasn't just a wild animal. Realizing this was beyond her expertise, Sarah called Texas Parks and Wildlife, and within 20 minutes, Dr. Stephen Mitchell, a seasoned wildlife biologist, arrived. After a brief exchange, the two cautiously approached the bobcat, which instead of fleeing, moved toward them, mewing urgently. "This behavior is strange," Stephen muttered. "Bobcats don't act like this." He adjusted his binoculars. "That marker on his leg, it's not ours. It looks like a tracking beacon." Sarah's police instincts kicked in. She relayed the number on the tag back to dispatch, only to receive an unexpected reply. "That tag belongs to a missing hiker," dispatch confirmed. "Robert Whitley, 42, an experienced outdoorsman. He was last seen in Fortress Ridge State Park." Sarah exchanged a glance with Stephen, shock settling over them. The bobcat wasn't just lost. It was trying to lead them somewhere. The small bobcat, which Stephen had started calling Nova, led them off the road and toward the dense tree line bordering the highway. Sarah radioed in their movements and requested backup, but help was at least 30 minutes away. The only leads they had were a desperate wild animal and a missing person's emergency tag. "This is crazy," Sarah muttered as they followed Nova into the woods. "I've never followed a bobcat into the unknown before." "Nature surprises us," Stephen replied, "especially when humans are involved." The forest was cooler, the towering oak and juniper trees shielding them from the harsh afternoon sun. Nova trotted ahead, stopping every so often to ensure they were following. It was behaving with intent, not random instinct. Then Sarah spotted boot prints, fresh ones, leading deeper into the wilderness. Stephen knelt to inspect them. Size 11 or 12 men's hiking boots, a day old at most. Their hearts pounded with anticipation. About a mile in, they found signs of struggle: trampled grass, a torn backpack strap, a discarded water bottle, and dry blood on the leaves. Sarah's hand went to her sidearm. Something happened here. Then, just beyond the clearing, they saw it, a steep ravine, and at the bottom, partially concealed by a fallen tree, lay a motionless figure. "Robert." Stephen called out, scrambling closer. The man stirred, weakly raising an arm. "He's alive." Sarah breathed, quickly radioing for medical support. Nova stood at the edge of the ravine, pacing anxiously. Robert Whitley had been found, but now they had to get to him before it was too late. Carefully, Sarah and Stephen descended the ravine, using tree roots and rocks for support. Nova, surprisingly, navigated the terrain with ease, instinctively leading them down. When they reached Robert, his face was pale, his breathing shallow. His right leg was pinned under the fallen tree, and dehydration had taken its toll. But when he saw Nova, a weak smile crossed his face. "Nova, you found help," he whispered. Stephen got to work assessing Robert's injuries. Compound fracture of the right tibia. Possible concussion. He's stable for now, but we need extraction ASAP. Sarah handed Robert a water bottle as she radioed updates to search and rescue. "Hang in there, Robert. Help's on the way." Between sips of water, Robert explained his ordeal. He had been in the forest conducting a final rehabilitation test for Nova, preparing her for release into the wild. A sudden lightning storm had startled her, and as he pursued her, a weakened tree collapsed, trapping his leg. Unable to reach his emergency beacon, he'd done the only thing he could: attached his tracker to Nova and prayed she would find humans. You train a bobcat to get help? Sarah asked in disbelief. Not exactly, Robert admitted. I taught her to associate roads with humans. When she panicked, I hoped she'd head toward one and someone would notice. Nova nuzzled against Robert, seemingly understanding what was happening. You essentially created a search and rescue bobcat, Stephen said, amazed. An hour later, the rescue team arrived, carefully lifting Robert onto a stretcher. As they hoisted him up the ravine, Nova refused to leave his side, emitting soft, distressed sounds. She's not ready to be released yet. Robert pleaded as he was carried away. Please, look after her. Stephen placed a hand on Nova's head. I'll take responsibility for her until you're back on your feet. The story of Robert Whitley and Nova the Bobcat was about to make national headlines. 3 weeks later, Sarah visited the Austin Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where Robert was recovering. She had been unable to get Nova's story out of her mind. When she arrived, Robert greeted her warmly. Officer Winters, he said, shaking her hand. It's good to finally meet you properly. Call me Sarah, she replied with a smile. And you handled a compound fracture better than most people handle paper cut. Robert chuckled. Adrenaline helps. But knowing Nova succeeded, that was better than any painkiller. He led her to a large enclosure, where Nova was now thriving under supervised care. Dr. Stephen Mitchell had been visiting regularly, fascinated by Nova's unique intelligence and survival instincts. Nova's case is rewriting what we know about rehabilitation, Stephen explained. She's too socialized to be fully wild, but too independent to be domesticated. Robert nodded. So we're launching a new initiative, Wildlife Ambassadors. Animals like Nova, who occupy a space between wild and tame, will help educate the public about conservation. A month later, Nova's story was featured at the Texas Conservation Gala, where both Robert and Sarah received state commendations for their roles in her rescue.